I'm going to read a verse from Corinthians here, and this really helps you understand his mentality, and this is not at all where we are in our culture. Let's check this out. In Corinthians, the believers were suing each other and fighting with each other, all this kind of stuff, and here's what he says, 1 Corinthians 6:7, to have lawsuits at all with one another is already a defeat for you. Here's his advice. Why not rather suffer wrong? Why not be defrauded? Yeah, go ahead and make that your life verse. Yeah, this is my life verse. Just be wrong to be defrauded. But that's his mentality. Comfort is a currency to purchase gospel advancement. He spends his comfort, and he's not yelling for his rights, and he's a Roman citizen. He did mention it once because, hey, you can't, anyway. But he's not like our culture about you can't, litigation. And there are times and seasons where that's appropriate. But I'm just saying, are we willing to spend our comfort for the gospel? What are you willing to spend comfort for? I'm willing to spend comfort to get up at 3 a.m. to hike Long's Peak. That's fun. I'm willing to drive my van to the Badlands. It doesn't have air conditioning, and it's been 100 degrees in the van before. Seriously. And we go through the whole thing, should we get air conditioning? It's just too expensive, so we don't. But I'm willing to endure. I'm willing to spend comfort for that because it's fun. What about opportunities for the gospel? What about awkward family relationships around the dinner table? Are you willing to expend the comfort, the Norman Rockwell scene that you want so desperately, and yet you have people around your table who don't share your values, who mock Christianity, and who are hostile to you? Are you willing to spend comfort to welcome them like Jesus welcomed the tax gatherers and sinners, and you know what I mean? I'm not saying your kids are tax gatherers and sinners. I'm just saying, right, we have those tensions, okay? Anyway, and then we go on here in verse 19. This is fascinating. I learned this. I didn't know this until I studied it, but I guess that's like everything, right? But anyway, for I know that through your prayers and the help of the Spirit of Jesus Christ, this will turn out for my deliverance. Now, deliverance, that's the word salvation that we run into all the time, and every time you see that word, it does not always mean spiritual deliverance. Here, it most likely means deliverance, his acquittal, the trial, he's going to be freed from jail. But anyway, the phrase here that caught my eye is, this will turn out for my deliverance. It turns out that is the exact same phrase, words, order of words from Job 13:16. In the Septuagint. It's a Greek translation of the Old Testament. And so it seems that Paul is identifying with Job. Job faced hostile accusers, and he said, this will turn out for my deliverance. I know all will be vindicated, okay? And Paul seems to be identifying, Job had hostile accusers. He was in the right. I have hostile accusers. I'm in the right. I know I will be vindicated. And there's this weird match going on. Maybe not, but it seems more than likely that he's identifying with Job and expecting as Job to be vindicated from his position. Okay, so verse 20, it's my eager expectation and hope that I will not at all be shamed to preach the gospel, but that with full courage now, as always, Christ will be honored in my body, whether by life or death. Wow, so Paul says, I'm in jail, whatever, the gospel is advancing. Other people are preaching with wrong motives to bother me, whatever, the gospel is advancing. And whether I face life or death, whatever, the gospel will advance. And so he sees everything through that lens. And that's a tremendous freedom that I don't know that, honestly, I have all the time, because I get kind of locked up in my tactile physical world, and I see problems as just problems, and it's hard for me to view this as an opportunity for the gospel, right? When someone steals something from me, my first thought is not, oh, an opportunity for the gospel, right? I'm just being honest with you. And so that's just a hard thing, and yet I think that's where Christ would have us go. This is where Paul was moved because of his laser focused on the gospel and how he responded to the gospel. He spent his currency for the furtherance of the gospel, the currency of his comfort. All right, and so he says because of their prayers and the Spirit's help, he's confident. Doesn't matter if he dies. Paul has found something to die for. Now, there's this phrase, every man will die, but not every man truly lives. And that's probably true, right? And so often people don't really find something to live for. Certainly, they don't find something to die for. And communism has, in the past, been that for some people like Whittaker Chambers. I was reading about him. He was born in Philadelphia went to Brooklyn as a child, just a brutal life. I mean, check this out. His parents separated, and they had to care for their mentally ill grandmother. His father was a sexual deviant and would beat him. His mother was a neurotic. His brother committed suicide, and so he was very confused, but he found solace and purpose in communism. This is what he wrote. Communism offered me what nothing else in the dying world had power to offer me at the same intensity, faith and a vision, something for which to live and something for which to die. I'm like, dude, I wish you had heard about the gospel, right? It would give you life and not death. So Paul found a reason to live and he found a reason to die, and he wasn't afraid to die. He wasn't afraid of the pain of death. He wasn't afraid of losing his connections with his friends and family. He was just all about the gospel. The gospel is his bigger yes. So verse 22, for me to live is Christ, to die is gain. If I am to live on in the flesh, that means fruitful labor to me. Look at this. He can't lose. If I live, fruitful labor. But what to choose, I can't tell. Now, as I read this is emotional language. It's not calm and collected like normal. I'm hard-pressed between the two. My desire is to depart with Christ, but that's better, but to remain in the flesh is more necessary for your account. So a calmer Paul, in the spirit of Romans, the legal lawyer language, he would probably have written, he who lives on in the flesh shall continue to minister, while he who ceases to live on earth shall take up residence with Christ. Same thing, except he's like, well, if I'm living in the flesh, that's fruitful labor, but I don't know what to do. I'm hard-pressed, and so he's just, kind of all over the place. But look at verse 25. I don't know what this means. I don't know how he knows this, by faith, the Lord, but convinced, again, assurance, convinced of this, I know I will remain and continue with you all for your progress and the joy and faith, so that in me you may have ample cause to glory in Christ Jesus because of my coming to you again. So this is fascinating. He seems to be, I could live, I could die. The verdict, the Roman verdict, I could be executed. And if that's the way it is, I'm with Christ, and that's great. But you guys still have so many needs. Epaphroditus brought back with a letter, 800 miles. He brought back news of divisions and theological confusion. And Paul's like, you guys need help. You need some advice. And I think the Lord's going to have me live on so that I can speak to you and your church to those things. And so he's like convinced, I know I'm going to live, and which really, look at the thought process of Paul. He's basically saying that it's not the legal process that will determine my fate, it's your need for the gospel. Your need for the gospel is the driving force behind my legal verdict. Isn't that great? He's not even worried about that. He's like, if the Lord wants me to do this, you know what I mean? Do you understand this? The next time you're in litigation, just try that approach. Yeah, the gospel need here is going to really drive the outcome of this litigation. Again, we just don't go there right away. Hopefully we're not engaged in litigation frequently, but I've got a brother-in-law who's a builder, and he's just always getting sued. It's just just more of the same, and that's just business. That's just the way it works. But anyway, okay. So he sees the gospel as the driving force behind his legal trial, and that is amazing. You need me to come back to you. So did Paul get to go back? Was he released? Yeah, he was. He was released from that Roman imprisonment. The book of Acts ends. He's there 2 years. He writes, every prisoner causes problems, Ephesians, Philippians, Colossians, Philemon, and all these letters from prison. By the way, think of this. While he's in prison, what resource does he have that allows him to write all these letters? Time. Isn't that interesting? Again, so he has time. He writes all these letters impacting hundreds and thousands of different people, and even us down to this day. But he was released, and he goes about his life for about 6 more years, and then Rome arrests him again, and he's executed. And so here's wrapping up. Why does Paul want the Philippians to know this? Why does he write this? Again, because he is walking through his own trials. He's in jail. He faces other believers who are attacking him, and he may live, he may die. And one day, Philippians, you might be in jail. You are opposing Rome. Other people will be hostile towards you. You might face death. When that time comes, think like me, because I think like Jesus, and celebrate the gospel, be laser focused on the gospel, not comfort, not your rights. And this is the path to thanksgiving and joy, all right? Because gospel living, gospel thinking results in gospel living, which results in thanksgiving and joy. So, where are you with your circumstances? Paul was put, assigned, tactically placed in jail for the advance of the gospel. One, when your kids, family, relatives, beloved ones are put in a place that's full of affliction, I just invite you to consider, what might the gospel have to do with that? It's a good question, right? And if it's our own stupid behavior, we just pray for redemption for that scene. Because sometimes I've been in like, it's just my stupid behavior, and God is still there with me, but you get what I'm saying, okay? But what if the Lord puts you as a baker, and a gay couple comes and says, make a cake for our wedding? I love this question because it's like the tattoo question. I love tattoo. What would you get if you got a tattoo? Anyway, I won't go. Anyway, so the baker, if you're a baker and a Christian, would you make a cake for them? I would. Why would we demand that someone without Christ live a moral life as though they had Christ before we love them? Is this the environment to grind an axe and say, I disown, I dislike, I disapprove? I don't see Jesus doing that with the adulterous woman and the prostitutes and the tax gatherers. And this is a hard question. It doesn't mean I'm approving of that. And I've been through this whole thing with kids. What if my son marries marries a guy? Would I go to the wedding? And it's not an easy question, but my wife and I all the years, or like, what if they marry a crazy woman, a heretic who's just nuts? They didn't, but I'm just saying, early on, we're like, what if that happens? Again, here's our response. Welcome to the family. We love you. By faith. Because I don't know what it's going to look like, but we want to love you as Jesus loves us, okay? And that's hard. So I just struggle with, does someone have to agree with me before I love them? Remember, I had a family member once say to my face, I don't have to love you if you don't agree with me. And I'm like, I don't think I see that in the gospel. Interesting. So that kind of challenges me. And it's okay if we differ on that question. I'm just trying to bring it to bear. Like this is a real issue. And there might be other circumstances where it would move the needle one way or another. I get that. But still, the point is, zoom out here, the Lord puts us in places where we have tension, where we have difficulty. And often those are for gospel issues, kingdom issues. And we lock down on our comfort, and you don't agree with me, and I don't feel loved, you don't respect my values, and so you're not welcome at Christmas anymore. Okay, it's a difficult thing, right?